Part 2 of the Linden trouser sew along will cover steps 23 to 50. So the first step is assembling the fly closure. And what we're going to do here is serge the crotch seam on both the front right and front left trouser. Okay, and once this is done, we're going to take the zipper shield and fold it in half lengthwise with the right sides facing. And we're just going to stitch it together along the bottom, along that curved area. And once we're done stitching that together, we can turn it inside out and serge along the side edge. And we'll just put some pins in here before we serge that together. So with tailor's chalk and a ruler, we're going to draw a vertical line 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters inwards from the folded edge onto the zipper shield. On the front left trouser piece, we're going to fold the zipper area 5/8 of an inch or 1.6 centimeters towards the wrong side and press it with an iron. We can now turn the front left trouser over to the right side, and we want to lay the zipper down and pin it in place in preparation for sewing. So we just want to make sure that the zipper is 0.4 or 1 centimeter downwards from the top raw edge of the trouser. And once that's all lined up, we're just going to pin it in place to hold it down nice and secure. And once everything's pinned in place, then we can take it to our sewing machine and make sure we'll put a zipper foot on the sewing machine so that we can get nice and close to the zipper. And we're just going to sew along the side of the zipper from the top all the way down. And I recommend opening the zipper. It will just allow you to get nice and close to the zipper teeth with the stitching. And using a zipper foot, you can kind of just carefully and slowly sew along that zipper. And as you get towards the bottom, you may be able to continue sewing without the bottom zipper getting in the way, but if you find it's a little tight, you can just back tack, kind of cut the stitching and then close the zipper and then finish the last little piece. So that's up to you. So we now want to attach the zipper shield to the front left trouser. So what we'll do is we'll place the shield behind the sewn zipper, ensuring that the center of the zipper is positioned directly above the line which has been drawn. So that line that's 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters from the folded edge. And we'll just make sure that the zipper lines up with that line and then pin it in place. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew over that stitch line again, just doing another line of stitching over top of the one we previously did, but this will hold the zipper shield in place. And as I mentioned earlier, it might get a little bit tight as you sew the zipper, and if that happens, you can just back tack, cut your line of stitching, close the zipper, and then you can get closer to where you were working again. Just go over the last few stitches and then sew right down to the bottom. So the next step is with the front right trouser, and we want to fold the fly facing flap towards the wrong side along the center front fold line. So there is a notch there, and we want to press the iron to create a crease, and then we want to unfold it, and with tailor's chalk and a ruler, make a vertical line that's 0.4 inches or 1 centimeter outwards from the pressed fold line. We're now going to attach the zipper to the other side of the trouser. So what we're going to do is open the zipper up, and we're going to line the zipper teeth up with the line on the fly facing, making sure that the front of the zipper is facing downwards. So that zipper will be open and then facing downwards, and we want to pin it in place with the top of the zipper at least 0.4 inches or 1 centimeter below the top edge. So we'll just take a minute to pin that in place carefully, and you'll be able to see how it's all going to come together here. But we'll just carefully kind of hold that in place, pin it in place. And then we want to sew that zipper in place from the top down, from the right side of the fabric. And we'll just take our time to do that carefully. We want to make sure that the zipper is centered over that chalk line. And we'll go right down to the bottom. Okay, perfect. And now we can close the zipper and pin the fly in place along the center front. So we'll just pin that in place from the right side. We're now going to mark a stitch line on the front right trouser. So we're going to lift up this flap and see where the bottom of the zipper is, and we want to measure 1/2 inch down from the very bottom edge of that metal piece of the zipper. We'll measure down 1/2 inch and make a mark, and then we want to measure inwards 1¼ inches on the right trouser and make a vertical line. So we'll just make that vertical line there, and then we're going to just use a curve to connect those two lines, and that will give us a guideline for our stitching. And then before we go to the machine, we want to make sure that we pin the zipper shield to the left trouser on the inside, and that's because we don't want to catch it in our stitching. So we can sew down that vertical line, and what we're going to do is just only sew the vertical line and then stop. So we'll just take a minute to sew down, and we're going to stop before the curve. And we'll do some back tacking. And then what we want to do is to unpin the zipper shield and move it back to the other side, to the right side. And that's because we want to catch the shield in our stitching on the curve and on the bottom edge. Okay, so now that we've unpinned that, we can go back to the machine and we can go over our last few stitches and then sew the curve and right down to the bottom of the fly. So we've now inserted the zipper and we've sewn along the fly stitch line, and we can remove the pins and check everything out to make sure that it's looking nice and working properly, and it looks great. So the next step will be to lay things down with the right sides together, and we want to pin along the crotch seam between the bottom of the fly facing to the notch. So we're not going to sew the entire crotch seam here, but we're just going to go from the bottom of that fly facing to the notch. And we'll just take a minute to put our pins in and get ourselves set up. And then we can move things to the machine and just sew along that line. Okay, we can now move on to the side pockets. We want to, with the right sides together, we want to align the notches and sew the upper pocket facing to the front trouser on both sides. So we're just going to pin those in place. And then once everything's pinned in place, we can bring it to the machine and sew along that line to attach them. So So we're just sewing both sides here, and once we're finished we can move on to serge the seams. Now that those seams are serged, we can bring everything to the iron board and just give it a good press towards the trouser side. And then what we're going to do is fold the upper pocket inside the trouser along the stitch line and then press it with the iron. So we'll just fold that under nice and neatly and give it a good press. And now we want to align the notches on the lower pocket facing with the front trouser and pin it in place. So we want to just align those notches and pin it in place on the top and bottom of the pocket. And we'll do the same on both sides. So we'll just make sure that the top and bottom edges are lining up with those notches and pin them in place. And then we're going to flip everything over and we can pin together the pockets. So everything should be lining up nicely. We want to pin around the pocket bag for each pocket. And then we're going to stitch along the pinned line so we can move everything to the machine. We're just going to sew the pocket bags together all the way around. And we'll do that on both sides. And then we'll bring both pocket bags to the serger and we're just going to finish that seam. So we'll serge both pocket bags. And as a final step, we just want to apply a basting stitch to secure the lower pocket facing to the front trouser along the top edge. So we'll just do a quick basting stitch along the top edge and then along the side edge to hold everything in place. Okay, so it's now time to assemble the trousers. So with the right sides of the fabric together, we want to pin the side seams of both the back and front trousers, and we want to sew from the top to the bottom. So we're just going to pin each side seam in place. And we'll do that on both sides, and then we'll bring it over to the machine and we'll sew each side seam in place. Okay, so now we're just gonna sew each seam here, and when we're finished we'll want to take that to the serger and serge each seam as well to finish it off. Okay, now we're just going to run that through the serger to finish off the side seams. And once those are done, we'll bring everything to the ironing board and we'll give it a good press with the iron and press the seam towards the back. So we're just pressing it towards the back side of the trouser. And you can press it from the right side as well, just to make sure everything's nicely finished. Now that we've finished the side seams of the trousers, we can move on to assembling the inner leg seam. So we're going to pin the inner leg of the back and front trouser together. And we'll just align the notches and pin everything in place. And then once it's all pinned, we're going to take things to the machine and just sew from the crotch to the hem on that inner leg. And we'll repeat that for the other side as well. And then once both inner leg seams are sewn, we can bring things over to the serger and we'll serge those seams and then bring them to the iron and press them towards the back. We're now going to assemble the crotch seam. So to connect the crotch seam, we want to turn one leg right side out and we want to leave the other leg wrong side out. So then we're going to take the one that is right side out and we want to fold that inside the other leg, making sure that the right sides are facing and the inner leg seams are aligned. So as we do this, we can make sure the inner leg seams are aligned by holding on to the inner leg seams and just lining them up. We'll make sure that everything is right sides together. And we can pin the crotch and center back in place and then sew from the crotch up to the center back. And the line of stitching is going to connect with our other crotch seam. So we're just going to pin all the way to the part we've previously sewn, and then we're going to close the rest of the crotch seam. So we'll move to the machine and we'll sew everything closed, starting at the crotch and working our way up towards the center back at the waistband. And once this is finished, we'll move everything to the serger and we'll serge everything and then press it towards one side. So now attaching the waistband, we want to fold the waistband in half lengthwise with the right sides facing, but we don't want to press anything into the waistband quite yet. So we're just going to fold it in half with the right sides facing and pin the sides of the waistband, and then we're going to sew the sides together. And when we finish sewing, we want to just clip the corners quickly and turn that inside out. And then with the right sides facing, we're going to pin one edge of the waistband to the top of the trousers, starting at the center front and working towards the end of the zipper shield. So we're just going to pin that in place all the way around the waistband. Okay, so we've got everything pinned in place and we're now going to move to the machine. We're going to sew the waistband in place all the way around, and we'll just take our time and just sew everything in place. So we're just going all the way around. And once we're finished sewing the waistband, it's a good idea to just have a quick look, make sure that nothing was folded or pinched, and if we need to fix it, that's a good time to do so. Then we can bring things to the ironing board, and we're just going to press the waistband upwards with the iron. We're going to do that all the way around, and that should just give it a nice flat seam. And we can turn things around to the right side and give that seam a nice press as well from the right side. And that will just give us a chance to make sure that everything's laying nice and flat and that it looks nice and tidy. And now we're going to press the remaining raw edge of the waistband 0.4 or 1 inches or 1 centimeter towards the wrong side. And we're just going to fold that raw edge in all the way around and press it with the iron. Now we're going to fold the waistband in half. We want to fold it over so that it's pinned in place where the edge just covers the seam. So we want that pressed edge to kind of just cover the seam that we sewed, and we'll pin that in place all the way around. And the reason that it's pinned so that it's just covering the seam is that we're going to stitch in the ditch from the right side. So we want to make sure that the waistband is going to be low enough that the line of stitching will catch it. So we'll just finish our pinning here. And if you want to add a label to your trouser, this is a good time to do so. I forgot to do so in the video, but I did open the seam and add one in. So when you're ready to sew, we can move to the machine and we're going to stitch in the ditch. So we want to stitch right into that seam so the stitch line is as invisible as we can make it. And you can leave the pins. The pins are on the inside, and what we'll be doing is sewing over the pins. If this makes you nervous, you can kind of just slow down your stitching a little bit as you approach the pins, but it's usually, a good practice for holding things in place. And if there are a few pins that you find are in the way, you can remove them. But I like to keep those pins in there just to make sure that the waistband doesn't shift as we're sewing it. And we now have a beautifully finished waistband. We can remove all the pins from the inside and take everything to the iron and just give it a quick press. And moving on to hemming, we're going to fold the bottom edge up by 1.5 inches or 3.8 centimeters towards the wrong side and press it with an iron. And then we're going to fold the bottom edge up again by 1.5 inches or 3.8 centimeters to enclose the raw edge. We're going to press that with an iron and pin it in place. And you can just measure as you go to make sure that we have the right width all the way around. And we'll pin everything in place. And we can sew it from the wrong side using an edge stitch all the way around. We now want to mark the placement of the buttonholes on our waistband. So using tailor chalk, we want to mark a vertical line 0.4 inches or 1 centimeter inwards from the waistband side. We're going to place the buttons on the vertical line to determine the spacing and mark the center placement of each button on that vertical line. Then we want to use tailor's chalk to mark 2 horizontal lines for the button placement, and each line should be the length of your button plus 0.1 inches or 0.3 centimeters. And it should be drawn inwards on the waistband from the vertical line and from that center point. So we'll draw those inwards, and you'll give a starting and stopping point. And we can lay the buttons on top and center them just to make sure that the placement looks correct. And before you move on to sewing directly on the trouser, I recommend always doing a test buttonhole. I did a test buttonhole here before moving on to the trouser just to make sure that the size of the buttonhole was correct and that all of these settings were working properly. But I have the buttonhole foot on my sewing machine, and I'm working through all of the steps of sewing a buttonhole. And so we'll just give ourselves a minute to sew both of those. And another tip is to make sure that your bobbin thread is long enough before starting buttonholes. I often check that because it would be a real pain to run out of bobbin thread in the middle of a buttonhole. So we'll just finish those up. And then once both buttonholes are complete, we'll work through just carefully cutting through the middle of the buttonhole. So we want to just make sure that we do that carefully, not catching or cutting any of the stitching. And to mark the position of the buttons, you'll want to close the front fly and hold it in place, and with a pencil, mark a dot where the center of the button will lie, which will be along the left side of the buttonhole. You'll mark a dot and then sew the buttons in place. And our final step is sewing the tab closures. So we want to pin the tab pieces with the right sides together, ensuring that each tab has one interface side. And then we're going to sew these along the long edges and the front arrow point. We can then trim the side edges and the corners, turn things inside out, and then go back to the machine and edge stitch all the way around the stitched area, keeping the back open. So on the interface side of each tab, we want to mark the buttonhole placement 0.4 inches or 1 centimeter inwards from the pointed edge. And each buttonhole should be the length of your button plus 0.1 inches or 0.3 centimeters. And that's the same as the previous buttonholes we did. And we're going to sew each buttonhole, ensuring the interface side of the tab is facing outwards. Once the buttonholes are sewn for each tab, it's time to attach the tab to the front trouser. So we want to place the tabs on the front of the waistband between the side pocket and the coin pocket. And if you'd like, you could align the edge of the tab with the slant pocket. We're going to have the arrows of the tab point towards the center front as we sew with a 0.4 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. And once that tab is sewn in place, we're going to fold the tab over and we're going to top stitch it so that the seam allowance is enclosed. And we're just going to fold that over, and then the tab will be facing towards the back, and we're going to sew that in place. And the last step is to sew on the buttons. So we can place the buttons on the waistband to get an idea of where we want to position them. And if you'd like to try the trousers on to get an idea of maybe how much you'd like to be able to decrease the waistband, that would be helpful. But the first button will be with the tab lying flat, so we can lie the tab flat and place a dot where that button would sit. And then we can decide how far in we'd like the second button to go and mark another dot. So you can go ahead and mark those on both sides and then sew the buttons in place. And that concludes part 2 of our Linden trouser tutorial. I'm so happy with how these turned out. I think they're beautiful and I can't wait to wear them soon. I hope this tutorial has been helpful with clarifying any questions you came across while sewing the pattern. Thank you so much for giving this pattern a try. We're so grateful to you for your support. And if you do decide to share your make on social media, we would love to see what you've made. Just use the hashtag TAUKO and tag us at TAUKO Magazine and Capstone Pattern Co. Thanks so much for following along.